Greg Nichols, American GI Forum, San Jose.
Patricia Ramos with the Community Working Together Group. Thank you.
Barry Anderson with Communities Working Together Group.
Tara Martin Milius, Sunnyvale City Council.
Danielle Pearson with San Thomas West Neighborhood Association.
Frank Ponciano, PACT organizer.
Leticia Rocha, Santa Clara Valley Water District.
José Rocha, Labor, Local 270.
Mikael Estremera with the Public Defender's Office.
Sam Ho with San Jose Evergreen Community College District.
Elaine Ortiz Christich with Evergreen Valley College Enlace co-chair.
Danny Garza, Chapter Chair, MAPA, the Mexican American Political Association.
Jerry Grassi, Eastside CBOC, and President of the Belvedere HOA and Mutual Water Company.
Lourdes Rivera, Alviso resident.
Trisha Tapia, President, Los Bomberos, Northern California.
Robert Aguirre, Homeless Advocate.
Tony Dow with the Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Emmanuel Ayi, Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Walter Katz, Independent Police Auditor.
Paul and Cynthia Valencia, Valencia Financial Services.
Debbie Indahar Giordano, Council Member, City of Milpitas.
Juan Ali Santosa, President, Board of Trustees, Milpitas Unified School District.
Hi, Eddie Garcia, Chief of Police.
Dave Knopf, Assistant Chief of Police.
Joe Melendez, Liquid.
Aaron Resendez, member of the San Jose Police Chief Advisory Board.
Frank Beal, Trustee, Eastside Union High School District.
Jenny Meehan, Executive Board of La Raza Roundtable, on the board with San Jose Evergreen Community College District, and President of J.Z. Meehan and Associates.
Darby Meehan, J.Z. Meehan Associates Consulting.
John Varela, Santa Clara Valley Water District, Director, District 1.
Chris Clark, District 5 United, and President of Park Pleasant Neighborhood Association.
Chris Elias, Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Elias Williams, Western Digital, San Jose.
Darrell Williams, Santa Clara Valley Water District.
Rose Amador, CEO, Conexión to Community, and co-chair of the Raza Roundtable.
Lori Ramos Ehrlich, Vice President of Conexión and Vice Chair of Sabor de Valle.
Chris Donnelly, Director of Work to Future.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ortiz. I am a student at Sac State and a member of Mujeres Ayudando a la Raza at Sac State.
Ramon Martinez from La Raza Historical Society.
Kosiwa Trinidad Native Talent Program, Capulito Naleke, and Native Voice TV.
Monica Amador, retired.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me. There's two things that I have to announce today. Something very unusual happened in Sunnyvale at our last council meeting, where we had about 30 people show up in the same kind of shirt and everything, and one man came forward and said, "Thank you so much." We usually don't get that kind of thing. It was the local union who was saying, "Thank you very much for looking at contractors who hire prevailing wage." And we've started that policy in Sunnyvale, so it's starting to dribble down into our actual, we're seeing the actual hires happen now. Everything at prevailing wage for all of our subcontractors. So I'm very excited about that. And the other thing is that this affects most people in the Santa Clara Valley. The Silicon Valley Clean Energy, which includes all of the cities and the unincorporated county, except for San Jose, Palo Alto, and Santa Clara, who are doing their own deals on this. We will be contracting for clean energy, 100% clean energy from our electricity starting in April. So everybody who is in our area, except for those 3 cities, will be receiving clean energy, 100% carbon-free, and you'll still get it at 1% less than PG&E. So we're very excited about that. So thank you so much. Thank you.
I want to let you know also that this year, this fiscal year, Caltrans statewide did 25% of its money spent with small businesses. But interestingly enough, the local district here in 4 did 40%. So it carried a lot of the state on its back. So you have a very good district here for doing business with small businesses. On the school bonds, I'm not saying don't support it, support the school bonds, but the people that put these bonds out need to start looking at how they're written because it's poorly written. And I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Bonds are grants. They give out grants to schools to do money. And grants have been determined by our governor when he was an attorney general, that grants are not a contract. And therefore, the state's 25% goal for small businesses does not apply to grants because it only applies to contracts. So the billions of dollars that will go out on these school bonds, no small business will participate. That money will all go to the big contractors. So from now on, when we write this stuff, vote for it. We need schools. But from now on, when we write this stuff, we get these petitions out, make sure that the term in there is, if it's a grant, it will say a grant is defined as a contract and small business goals will apply. Because that money comes down, if $100 comes into San Jose to a small business, that will turn over 7 times before it leaves them. That means $700 is in the community. If $1 million comes in, that means $1 million is in your community. So we want to do business with small businesses because that money turns over where they live. So let's be sure that in these things that go out in the future, we have that terminology in there. And I mentioned this to Jim Bell, who was astonished to know that one of the things he was putting out was a grant for, and they've always put them out. He didn't know that small business didn't participate. So I'm sure he's going to look at the language. So let's look at that in the future. Thank you very much.
Well, good evening. It's an honor for me to be here to address you. It's been a rough few weeks for American law enforcement, as you well know. And some of those things, some of those issues really come down to the relationships that we have with our community. We stand here, and as an example, I got hired when I was 21 years old in 1992. And I will tell you that when I put on this badge at that time, I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant for me. It did truly mean to help people, to solve problems, and to help our community. But there's a reality that I think we all need to face as well, is that this badge has not always meant that to a lot of people, a lot of communities. And we need to understand that and accept that as a modern police department, that the history of negative law enforcement in this country, whether regarding any racial groups in this country, needs to be part of our history. And we need to understand that and know that so that we can move on from that and actually truly help fix and mend the ties that do affect us. I will tell you this is police department, and we talked about how managing in times of non-crisis is almost it's actually more difficult than managing in times of crisis. When there's a crisis that befalls you, you know what the issue is and you deal with it. When you're operating in a time of non-crisis and you have good community relations, as we have had in this city, it's very easy to sit there and not try to improve and to say, hey, things are going well, and you know what, put your money in the mattress. Well, we decided not to do that. We decided that's not a good way to go. And we never could foresee what's befalling, this country. And I'll be honest with you, as I was watching the President Obama's speech the other day, he made a lot of great points. And a couple of the points he made and it goes in line really with a lot of things that I've been trying to tell the community at times. It's about mutual respect. And, can we honor, one of the things President Obama said, can we honor the work that a police officer does and still maintain a fair and just legal system? He says, I think we can accomplish that. Can we cherish and can we understand the fear that a person of color has when their child goes out at the same level we can experience and understand the level of fear that the family of a police officer has when they go out to do their work? That's mutual respect. And he really hit those points, and I was very happy he did. Because that's what we need to do. And as I've been saying very, very, very often is, we need to see each other as human beings. You know, our officers need to go out and as we patrol our most vulnerable neighborhoods, that we see a child and not automatically assume, you know what, they're up to something. That we see a child or we see an individual, it doesn't have to be a child, and say, you know what, that child is going to school. That kid can be a doctor someday. That kid wants to be a teacher one day. Or that individual's a father that just got home from work. Okay, that's not up to, that we just don't assume is up to no good. They're feeding their family, and they're doing good. Right, but it doesn't end there. Because I think the community that needs to see that officer that's patrolling at 11 o'clock at night, that officer just made dinner for their family. And that officer came in, and that officer is now going to work till 7 o'clock in the morning to stay up to ensure that that community is safe. And so that's how we see each other. You know, as we go through this process, we're not perfect. I don't know if any department is perfect. But I'm about to go through some of our initiatives that we've undertaken this year. And I have to say this, and I wish Walter was here because we discussed all these things. And one of the things that we are proud of as a department, as it did not take the Department of Justice to come in to tell us, you need to do these things. We did these things, and we're not done yet, because we thought that this was the best for our community. So, there's 12 projects. If you go online to sanjosepd.org, if you go to the right, there's a little picture of a guy going like this. That looks kind of like me. And right underneath that, there is a ribbon that says 21st Century Policing. You know, I will say during that meeting, which was very necessary. It's interesting, I was at a meeting 2 Thursdays ago. There was a lot of frustration in the community. And I sat there and had to listen, and it was a difficult conversation to listen to. But I had to sit there and listen and give the community an opportunity then. You have to, and it's very, very important. You know, afterwards people would come up to me and say, hey, Chief, you know, great job. I mean, I'm sorry you had to go through that. And I said, you know, it's my pleasure. And they said, well, I don't know if it's your pleasure to do that. And I said, no, it absolutely is. Now, you cannot hope to be the chief of the 10th largest city in the country, cities as beautifully and wonderfully diverse as San Jose is, and not have to sit there on the hot seat at times to explain things that are occurring in your department, in your community. And so it was my honor, because if I didn't want that, then I shouldn't have never taken these. So, you know, I stand here before you because I am your police chief, and I stand here before you because I represent your police department. And it is important to us. My officers, the ultimate goal truly is that every law-abiding resident of this city and every police officer get home every night. Community policing saves lives. True community policing and the existence of fair and impartial and fair and just policing in neighborhoods saves lives. Saves community lives and officers' lives. And that's why we're committed to doing what we're going to do. And so, President Obama came up with his 21st Century Policing guidelines, and you know, I've made that part of every promotional process. If you ask anybody that wants to promote in my department, they better know the 6 pillars of community policing and the 6 pillars of 21st Century Policing. And you know, as you go through that, you know, you have to instill that in your department. You have to make it important. You can't just say, hey, read this book. No, you're not just going to read the book. I'm going to test you on this book. You're going to get promoted based on if you know the pillars, if you know what it really means. Because that's truly the only way you can do it. And so one of the first things that we brought on, again ourselves, we're bringing up, we got a project that's called Fair and Impartial Policing. And it's a comprehensive program that, you know, it really just talks about the implicit biases that all human beings have. Okay, I am not going to be a chief here that's going to stand here and tell you that my officers don't have bias. They're human beings. We all have biases. But we simply can't act on those biases. And to be able to have training that helps you understand what those biases are and not to act upon them is critical for a modern police department. We have procedural justice training that we're implementing. Procedural justice training really is a training process that's treating people with respect, giving individuals a voice during encounters, being neutral and transparent in decision-making, and conveying trustworthy motives. You know, along with all this, we have to remind one of the ways Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt from Stanford talks about the ways to mitigate implicit bias really is to remind officers what it feels like, what it felt like when, I remember what it felt like in June of 1992 when I raised my right hand and got this badge pin. What did it feel like for you then? We have to work as command staff and an agency to remind officers why we took this job. It wasn't for a paycheck. Okay, we took this job because it was a calling. And we have to remind our officers that. And so that's what some of this training does as well. Some of the other things we've done is I've mandated that we have critical incident training for all of our officers, otherwise known as CIT. We have a lot of instances when we're dealing with people that are mentally disturbed, and those confrontations often lead to force. And we have to make sure that our department is as trained as they can be to be able to respond to those types of situations. And so before, there were old studies that would say that that program really should be a voluntary program, that you really should have people want to do that. Now, I kind of go like, well, you know what, I'm not going to go that route. If there's one tool that they can learn in this 40-hour course, then we're going to do that. If it's a way that we can save a life. Because the integrity of life is something that we're going to be instilling officially as a section in our duty manual that's first and foremost in our officers' minds when they're out on calls, is a preservation of life. We're going through de-escalation training. Right now we're going through, during our continual training that we have, de-escalation training, meaning how can officers get out of situations without having to use force, without having to use their firearms. I will tell you this, in the city of San Jose, we've used, am I good on time? You haven't stood up yet, so I think I'm all right. I lost my place. Okay, so one of the things that I was saying is, I found myself, I was in my house, in my neighborhood in San Jose. I live in the city, it's fantastic. And there was an incident of a man with a gun call on our street. So of course, as all the neighbors go up, and I'm obviously in plain clothes, as I get out, I was the only neighbor that, the sergeant came to go talk to, if you can imagine that. But as I'm asking him, hey, what's going on? There's a guy with a gun, got in a fight with his wife, and they were all setting up like we normally do tactically. They ended up finding the individual. They ended up taking the individual into custody without having to use any force whatsoever. So everyone goes about their way. And so I went in the house and I thought to myself, well, how many times has that happened? And this year, unfortunately, and I will say unfortunately because the last thing I know that I want to do, the last thing we want to do is ever use our firearms. I can tell you when our officers have used their firearms, mentally they're hurting. And I can honestly tell you that from first-hand accounts. But we've been involved in 4 officer-involved shootings this year. 2 have been fatal. And all of those shootings involving individuals with weapons. But from January till about July, we handled approximately 2,067 calls that involved weapons. 2,067 calls that involved weapons. And so doing simple math, that's 2,063 times that our officers were able to defuse a situation where someone had a weapon without having to use our firearm. And I just say, again, we're not perfect and we're moving forward, but our officers are truly trying. They're doing their best to try to de-escalate the situation as best possible. The other thing we're doing, which has gotten most of the press, is our body-worn cameras. Okay, we're more and more in our patrol force, we have about a little over 400 people in our patrol force, and the rest of that time is done in overtime. But we have our body-worn cameras, and as of this week, I think over 200 of our officers have been now officially trained with body-worn cameras. So our body-worn camera system is alive and well. And talking to the officers, they feel it's been helping them. They feel they've come up on individuals, and it's helped the officers as well. There's things that are going on with the policy. We're going to relook at the policy in 6 months. We have a pilot policy now, and we know that there's things that we're going to talk with our community about how we can tweak this policy to make it work for us. But truly, it's going to be a way that every interaction that a San Jose police officer has with the community involving some sort of criminality to it is going to be taped, and we will know the truth. One of the things we did also, without someone telling us, was kind of ahead of the curve. Because if you keep up with recent law changes, they ended up making this going to be making this mandatory for agencies. Well, I kind of smile because we're already doing it. The University of Texas El Paso is coming in, and we invited the University of Texas El Paso to come in after all right, you tell. To come in to our department and study all of our stops, all of our detentions. And when those findings come out as to how we're doing our detentions and what things we can do better, those findings will be made public. And their findings should be done sometimes at the end of the year near January time. And that'll make big news. You know, I will tell you, there'll be some things that we won't be able to answer and question, but I can guarantee you that we're going to learn from that and become the best police department we possibly can, because I'm not afraid of having that transparency. And so we're going to do that, and we've done that, and there's other departments, quite frankly, that haven't. I'll go quick. There's a few more things. We have a use of force committee that we established in the department, made up of the department members, high-ranking department members, the use of force experts that are looking at our policies on use of force and looking at ways to make our policies work better and be more progressive. We're working with the IPA on his recommendations that he did, that he talked to us about. We're doing Coffee with a Cop. We're doing a big Coffee with a Cop. What's Coffee with a Cop? Coffee with a Cop is an event just to get to know each other better. I've said this many times before, and every once in a while I'll forget it, but Martin Luther King Jr. once said, men hate each other because they fear each other because they don't know each other, they don't know each other because they don't talk. And so this program is our ability to go out and simply have conversations so that we can humanize each other, and I can have a conversation with someone and they can talk to me, I know what they do, they know what I do, and it really has very little to do with the uniform and more to do with us as human beings. And our next one's at Emmanuel Baptist on Sunday, and we're very much looking forward to that. We have our cab, all right? Shout out to cab. We have our cab. There's none of these initiatives that we've done in a vacuum. We've either worked with our cab or worked with PACT to get these things accomplished and working together. I've established an LGBTQ committee, okay, because there's issues surrounding that community as well. And not the funny thing, but we planned on doing this prior to Orlando. Prior to Orlando, I had sat down with Gabrielle, who's the head of the Billy DeFrank Center, and we wanted to get a committee together to try to understand and make sure that we can get those issues that separate us with that community, and we felt that was important. So we've established that. And then finally we have Team Kids. Team Kids is a program that allows patrol officers to visit elementary schools in blocks for 6 weeks that teaches these kids about safety, gangs, peer pressure, and those things like that. Like I said, there's other things. We're not done. I will tell you this. One thing I'm working on is getting a ice cream truck that I'm going to buy that's going to look like a San Jose police car, that's going to be an ice cream truck, that you're going to see the lights going on, and the siren's going to be the sound of an ice cream truck. And I'm going to be, I'm not kidding, I've texted the mayor, city manager, and our budget director that I need this ice cream truck that I can wrap, that we can send out to community events to think outside the box. And you know, when you think about it, these initiatives and these things are going to cost some dollars. But no department, major, small, what have you, can't afford not to invest in these things. So anyway, I went over, I'm sorry, but we're not done with what we're doing. We'll continue to work and continue to work together, and I'm proud to be your chief. Thank you.
Signs and American flags as they blocked the road, the buses finally had to turn around.
From the California shore, clear down to New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, clear down to the Alamo, lives a mighty sleeping giant, millions of Chicanos strong, and the day that he awakens, we will be where we belong, in the mainstream of society. Oh, the changes we can bring, Chicanos of the I sing. Wake up, Chicanos, wake up, let's get involved. Wake up, you sleeping giant, let's get our problem solved. No more mañana syndrome, don't sit around and hope. The only way to change things is to register and vote. We implore our young Chicanos, quit embarrassing us all. No more warfare in the barrios or graffiti on the wall. Get yourself a brand new image. Being macho might be cool, but the dude that's gonna make it is the one that stays in school. We are Mexican Americans or Chicanos, take your choice. Chicanos, let's raise our vote. Wake up, Chicanos, wake up, let's get involved. Wake up, you sleeping giant, let's get our problem solved. No more mañana syndrome, don't sit around and mope. We gotta get the lead out and register and vote. From the California shore, clear on to New Mexico, Arizona y Colorado, clear on to the Alamo. Live descendants of Cuauhtemoc from the great Tenochtitlan. We were here before Columbus, when this land was called Aztlan. We are Mexican Americans. We're mestizos and we're proud. Chicanos, let's sing out loud. Wake up, Chicanos, wake up, let's get involved. Wake up, you sleeping giant, we'll get our problem solved. No more mañana syndrome, don't sit around and hope. The only way to change things is to register and vote. I said the only way to change things is to register and vote. Simon, the only way to change things is to register and vote.
Volando con la brisa.